2020 version of The Grudge is by far the worst movie I have seen this year. I honestly have absolutely no idea what the filmmakers were trying to achieve here. The film was an absolute mess. I was trying to figure out what the hell was, actually happening in this film. I was trying to figure out what the actual point of this film was. I was even trying to figure out if I was actually watching the real version of this film. Nothing in this film makes any sense whatsoever, and this is probably the worst horror movie that I've ever seen, period. Oh, but what about, there's many other horror films that are worse than this one. Yeah, that's why I try to avoid them. The only reason I decided to watch this film is because it was free on Amazon Prime, and I was bored, so I went, what the hell, and I started the movie. And once the movie ended, I ended up thinking that, that's an hour and a half I'm never getting back. Anyway, let's just talk about, why I think this is a terrible movie. And by the way, there's going to be spoilers in this film, so if you want to watch the movie for yourself, go ahead. But I mean, I don't know. Do you really care about The Grudge? Spoilers for The Grudge? Because I don't. Alright, number one, the characters. Now, these aren't the worst characters that I've ever seen on screen, but by no means does that mean, they're competent either. None of these characters have any backstory, nor do they learn anything about themselves by the end of the movie. Let's look at the various characters. The main character is a woman who is a detective. That's literally it. She has a son and a dog, and she just shows up at this creepy house. I'm not even joking. This is her actual character. The next character you have is a real estate agent. This guy probably has the shortest amount of screen time out of all the characters. He has absolutely nothing to do with the plot of the movie. He has a wife who's pregnant with a child, and the child has ALD or something like that, so they're stressed out, even though that has absolutely nothing to do with the plot of the movie. Anyway, he basically tries to sell the haunted house and finds this little girl who is actually a ghost, but he doesn't realize that. So for some reason, he decides to stay and sleep at the house because he's worried about the girl being left on her own, and and she's worried that the parents will freak out, even though he's basically a complete stranger. Like, what? I don't know who wrote this, but this is not that good. Anyway, weird stuff starts to happen in the house, and the guy gets attacked by all these ghosts. And the scene ends with him going back to his wife, and he basically kills her and himself. So that's his character, I guess. The next characters we have are this couple and a psychologist, I think. Basically, the wife has mental problems to the point where she goes crazy and starts seeing things. And this husband tries to get a psychologist to help her. All this weird stuff happens with them, and the wife basically kills the husband and cuts off her fingers. This scares the psychologist away, and she gets into her car, drives off, and she crashes, basically killing herself. So that's that as well. There are other characters I haven't touched upon yet, but the point is, they have no backstory whatsoever. They have nothing to do with each other, and just like any cliche horror movie, they make the dumbest decisions. Moving on to number two, the antagonist. I went into this film not watching any of the other Grudge movies because I thought this film would be its own film since it's a remake, and it would bring up the backstory to what this house actually was, or is. Little did I know that wasn't the case, and I ended up being very confused the entire movie. I guess the antagonist or conflict, if you will, is the house, but it's not even that good because it's just, it just feels like any generic haunted house movie. Basically, if you enter the house, you get haunted by these ghosts for the rest of your life. There's no rules behind any of this, and the house doesn't even really kill these people. It just scares and tortures them, I guess. And if you're going to call this film The Grudge, at least let it live up to its title. The Grudge. Like what grudge is there? That there was no grudge. This house just scares people, and that's it. I mean, the house can just basically do anything to anyone, and none of the characters really do anything to try and stop it, except the detective. But like I said at the beginning, her character doesn't even have that much motivation, and she makes weird decisions. So it's basically just a scare fest. And I gotta say, most of the horror imagery in this film is pretty gross for the most part. This is actually just a really gross movie. And I understand it's horror, but you can't just rely on that because one, it draws the audience away, and two, it doesn't scare the audience except for the overuse of jump scares. Number three, the ending. This is probably the worst part about the film, and it's probably the worst ending I've ever seen in a film. Basically, the film ends with the detective driving her son all the way to the house. Yeah, I'm not joking. She actually does that. I have no idea why you would bring your son to the house in the first place. I mean, isn't that just putting him in danger? Anyway, she basically just leaves her son in the car by the street, and she burns the house down. The next day, the demon comes back and basically kills her, and the film ends on a shot of the detective's house. The reason this is a terrible ending is because our protagonist learns nothing by the end of the film, and the whole film in general is just pointless because nothing changes. The characters die and that's it. You can skip this movie and like nothing would change, which I recommend you do, by the way. How about you have this as the backstory, the character? Instead of a detective having a son, she has a case at the beginning of this film where she tries to solve a case where a boy was killed in that creepy house by someone, but the body was never found. Now, say when she was a child, she had a brother who was also killed at a very young age. That's why she wants to take this case, because she wants to have a little bit of hope that that boy is still alive. Her boss tries to convince her not to take this case, but she starts seeing all this disturbing imagery from the house, and that motivates her to take the case regardless. So throughout the course of this film, she's on a journey to try and solve it. By the end of the film, she goes into the house and tries to find the kid. She sees what she thinks is the kid and tries to rescue him, but it turns out, as she runs over to the boy, it turns into the creepy ghost and tries to attack her. Throughout the scene, she tries to fight off and get away from the ghost, and by the end of it, she walks into a room and sees the boy standing there. She sees the boy, and instead of saving him, she basically takes out a lighter and burns the house down, showing that the boy is actually the ghost. She gets out of the house and is left looking at the house burning down along with the ghost. This shows throughout the film that she was seeing her brother in the boy and thought that was a way of saving him, as if it was a second chance. But she learns that she can't save him. She can't bring her brother back. She can't save everyone. She just has to accept the fact that the boy was killed in the house and her brother's dead. You can't bring back someone who has died. And burning the house is her way of getting rid of the case and leaving all those problems behind her. Yeah, it's not perfect, but I mean, one, it's not my job to come up with the script, and two, it at least gives the character something to learn from and about themselves, and it doesn't end with nothing happening. So overall, I didn't really enjoy this film, or I really did not enjoy this film. You guys remember that film Countdown that came out in 2019? This film makes me want to watch Countdown, and that really says something because Countdown was pretty awful. You know, this film is just disgusting. It has no character development. The antagonist and conflict sucks, and the ending is just horrendous. And that's why I'm going to give this film a 0 out of 10. The actors are good, but I mean, like I said, like they don't have anything to work with really, and it's not enough, you know. There's a lot more I didn't touch up on in this film, but at the end of the day, I didn't like it, and I don't recommend you watch it. I think if you're a Grudge fan, you're going to be disappointed. And if you're not a Grudge fan, you're obviously going to be disappointed. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Leave your thoughts in the comments below. I'll probably do more reviews now because I'm not as busy at the moment. Yeah, there's a couple more movies I want to review. One called I See You. That's one I kind of want to review. But yeah, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.